Joining us now live from Spain is Alex Jones. He's there covering the collapse of Europe, looking at where the bankers will move next. And as Alex pointed out earlier in the show with his report that he sent in, he's in Spain where they have recently enacted some very stringent rules against free speech, not just for domestic journalists, but also for people who are visiting there. So joining us now is Alex Jones in Spain. Alex?
Thank you so much, David, here on this July 30th, 2015 global transmission. I do come to you live from Barcelona, Spain, and I look at the headline, Satanic Cult Used Profits from Baphomet Statute Unveiling to Fight Anti-Abortion Efforts. Why wouldn't they support child sacrifice? The New York-based devil-obsessed cult known as the Satanic Temple used funds from recent PR-driven Baphomet statue unveiling in Detroit to fund an effort to undermine legal moves to ban abortion after 20 weeks, as well as other anti-abortion legislation. That story with video of the group, whether they're black or white or Hispanic, they all have green skin. All so white, the skin's green. And anytime we go out and demonstrate and try to save babies, out of nowhere just appears these ghouls. And you look at them, they have chicken necks, they're incredibly weak, they stumble over potholes, they can hardly walk, but everyone just bows down to them instead of warhammering them. I mean, they want to sit there and feed on innocents. Let's let them have a real fight politically. They need to be warhammered. I mean, we don't serve a weak God, ladies and gentlemen. We serve the powerful God that created the universe. And the devil's taken over the churches and all these other systems, and that's why we are in the situation we are, bowing down to these piles of simpering, stinking, dead flesh that are self-propelled, walking around animated by their weak, fallen God. These people make me sick. And I didn't mean to get up here and start preaching. I apologize. It's just the falling down and worshiping the green skin maggot vomit that is Satanist makes me want to throw up. I mean, put me in a ring with them. I'll take 5 of them on at once, give them battle axes, give me one. I guarantee you, I will send them all straight to hell. These people are weak. And I'm tired of them ruling over us. I'm tired of them. They want to throw up. But the good news is humanity is rising. And the globalists know it, and that's why they're working as hard as they can to try to shutter our minds, shutter our souls, and put us in their false reality so they can control us, because these evil people are afraid of those of us that are awake and tied into God and tied into the universe. Now, I'm going to stop the preaching right there. I'm going to stop for a moment. But I tell you, I knew in my gut about 3 weeks ago, I started saying, hey, I think I might go to Europe. Watching the meltdown, watching the collapse of the economies in Greece and Ireland and Spain and Portugal and France and the UK, watching all this happen, I said, I just feel like in my gut, I need to get to Europe and see what's happening. And I did my own research, talked to a lot of experts, and they said, next up is Spain, next up is Italy. So we're going to Spain, we're here, we're going to Italy, we're going to Greece. We've already been to the UK that has the main banking command base in the city of London, within London, running it all, above the law, diplomatic community. The British people aren't running it, I want to be clear. They always misrepresent. The globalists are based there to a great extent. They're based in D.C., they're based in Israel, they're based in the Vatican. Nothing against Catholics, nothing against Jews. The globalists are separated out in different above-the-law, diplomatically immune command bases. And who else is diplomatically immune and in command bases? Royalty. And I knew all this history, but once I got here to Spain a couple days ago, I began to do research just to double check my memory. And I was like, my gosh, this is crazy. Juan Carlos was way down the line in royal succession. The Spanish people had already voted pre-fascism, pre-communism, to get rid of their monarchy, not to arrest them, not to kill them like the communists did to the czars in Russia, but to just say, you know what, you don't own 300 palaces, you don't own the oil companies and the shipping firms and the people. We're not feudal serfs anymore, we're free. Because it was feudalism in Spain. The people were owned by the royalty. They weren't owned by the royalty pretty much before the La Reconquista, but when the royals came in, backed by European nobility, Germanic and others, to kick the Islamic takeover, the Moors out, one tyranny for another, they became true feudalists. I mean, the people were the property after the La Reconquista. And let's be honest, they were historically treated better than under Islamic rule. That particular North African Islamic rule was one of the most brutal there is out there. Slave trade, everything. Which, why the Spanish picked up the slave trade after La Reconquista was because they were taught it by the North Africans. Again, I'm just sick of the political correctness. I'm not Islamophobic, but the modern slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade, was taught to Spain and Portugal by the Moors. Who? They didn't care what color you were. If they could grab you, they'd enslave you. If you were a woman, they didn't care what color you were, they'd enslave you. So why slavery? So I'm here in this incredibly historic place that gives us echoes of what's happened in other periods in history, and how what they went through in the last 1,000 years plus here in Spain, and finally Spain being freed by the wise one or El Cid and others. It's just epic to see what's now happening once again here in Spain. The people, you hear on the news, you hear the Greeks are lazy. It's all their debt. They're lazy. They only work 6 days a week. They should work 7 days a week. They should pay 100% taxes. They're a bunch of lazy scum. And then you look at the statistics of the Greek people. They work very hard on average. Some of their public sector and private sector pensions are a little unsustainable and based on derivatives, but that's not the general public. So you hear they all owe these debts. They deserve it. Well, I've been here in Barcelona, and I've been in some of the other cities. We're going to be traveling with some others. And the people are the most hop to it, on top of it, hardworking, super service-oriented that I've ever seen. I mean, boy, if this is lazy people, we need some of this in the United States. And I talked to some of the locals, a lot of Infowars fans we've run into. Some of those videos are going to get uploaded. These folks are working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. They've had their taxes raised and raised and raised and raised and raised. Their government has submitted to the EU takeover and all the VAT taxes and the rest of it. It's all selectively enforced, and they've got Catalonian separatist movement here where I'm at in Barcelona in Catalonia, just over the mountains to the north is France, and they want to be their own country. They're a mix of French, Germanic / Spanish, and it's an older culture than most of Spain. The culture is more than 2,000 years old, and they're pretty much the original Spanish culture that got overrun and taken over. And they're just like, you know what? We're productive. We work hard. We're smart. We don't want to be under Juan Carlos and the EU. We want to be free. And you see Catalonian flags on almost every house and almost every apartment hanging over the side. And, of course, it didn't matter how they voted or what they wanted. Still, they were put under EU rule, where the EU unelected bureaucracy dominates and controls every facet of what they do. But separate from that, as you heard in the first hour, we covered Zero Hedge, we covered the London Independent and others. The London Independent called it bizarre police state. It's so over the top that if you say anything about Juan Carlos, the King of Spain, if you say you think he's ugly, if you say he looks... Pardon me, David?
No, they just handed me some information, Alex. The IMF is now saying that they're not going to give Greece the bailout. This is amazing. Even after the betrayal of the Greek people by the prime minister there, the socialist prime minister for the European Central Bank and the IMF and others, they're now saying they're not going to even honor that agreement.
Because the plan of the EU, as we said 20 years ago, as we said 10 years ago, as we said in Endgame, as we said in the Obama deception, as we said on record, because the heads of the EU have said this is to take over nation states, get them in debt, implode them, and then end national sovereignty. So continuing here with this breakdown, you see the moves of people desperate to be free, desperate to get out from under 75% taxation as they have on average of even blue-collar workers in Spain. 95% taxes on the middle class, 101 on the nouveau riche, 101% 3 years running in France, just north of me, to bankrupt new wealth that threatens the hegemonic rule of the ultra-rich who are above the law and don't pay taxes. So that's what this whole story is about. What you see happening in Spain, what you see happening in Greece, what you see happening in these areas is what's coming to the United States. When we got off the plane, I needed to exchange some cash so I could pay for taxi fares and stuff. Because a lot of folks want to be in the cashless, want to be out of the cashless society, so they want cash. So I tried to get $300 changed into euros here in Spain. And they wanted my passport, my driver's license, where I was staying, what I was doing, what I would spend the money on. They admittedly are bringing capital controls to Spain, just as they've done to Greece, because they're getting ready to take people's bank accounts with the bail-ins. This is the exact same culture being brought to America. It is so draconian to see our world being captured by these criminals. And then to see how a lot of experts thought they wanted Greece to default. That's why they gave them deals, the last 3 bailouts that were untenable, that would bankrupt them. And even when they agreed to an increase of VAT of 15 percentage points on everything sold in the country, even when they agreed to most of their public and private sector companies being taxed and handed over to foreign banks, even as they agreed to having their islands turned over, even as they agreed to total financial enslavement, it wasn't enough, as you're now reporting, that they're saying we may not just give you this bailout. This is the predatory plan. And it's why here in Spain, Rob Dew was out just videotaping on a street of a cathedral. He wasn't filming the police. They were back in the background, looked like ants in the shot. They march over and they said, under the new laws, we can arrest you for doing that, and grabbed his camera, erased it, erased the information, and then told us, because of Islamic terror, we have to now take your freedom. And we're sorry, but we have to. And I started saying to them, they spoke somewhat decent English. I said, your government brings in the radical Islamics. They're funding ISIS. This is a pretext to take freedom. And they just said, well, this is just the way it is. And so it's in the news that any criticism of Juan Carlos the King, who was put in by Francisco Franco, who was Hitler's adjunct basically during World War II, any criticism is prison time. They don't care who you are. I mean, imagine in the West, any criticism of the King of Spain, it's like 500 years ago, is huge fines or prison time. And then under the name of the king, if you say our local police are lazy, they're raising taxes too much, they all basically want swimming pools and hammocks at their bases, you are then fined or arrested. This is in the West, and there's nothing out of the U.S. media. There's some out of the British media, some out of the German media, but it's here. Fascism never really ended in Spain. It's simply back. And I make the point in another video at Infowars.com that the dominoes are beginning to fall and that Spain's the first domino, that this is a sign that the global financial collapse is imminent by engineered design, because they are unveiling classical fascism, classical totalitarianism. And while the very same foundations pushing this are financing attacks on the police, communist terror attacks, and a communist movement as the fake revolution that once the fascists come in, they'll drive her one of the arms of communist in the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution that Carol Quigley wrote about to bring us into this system. So this is so unprecedented. And I talked to folks in the UK. I talked to people here in Spain. We're talking to so many people, and they say, no, the economy's bad. It's getting worse. And they say, it'd be okay, but they keep raising the taxes. I mean, imagine being in France and being about 25% of the public. People making over 100,000 euros a year, and you pay 101%, a retroactive tax 3 years running, to make you quit, to make you stop, to make you shut down your restaurant, shut down your car dealership, shut down your hotel, shut down your factory, lay off your workers so they go on welfare. And the big mega corporations, tax exempt, above the law, just like with the bank consolidation in the U.S., a little bank shutting down. Under the regulations, I was talking to a major head of a Texas bank that has hundreds of branches. They're shutting down retail. They're shutting down loans. They're shutting down housing loans. They're shutting down everything because the regulations won't let them loan, and the big banks are exempt. Do you understand, folks? This is the takeover. This is feudalism, where the big mega rich like Juan Carlos and others don't want you to have a business. don't want you to have a life, don't want you to compete with them. And then they scapegoat capitalism and blame it for what they themselves are doing that isn't capitalism, that is fascism. I mean, it is so diabolical to see them squeezing people and absolutely harassing them, and to witness this, and it hurts everybody. I don't care who you are in America, who you are in Spain, who you are in France, who you are in the United Kingdom, who you are anywhere in the world. This yoke of corruption, this yoke of mega banks laundering the drug money and running the child kidnapping rings and promoting the abortion and promoting the tyranny and promoting the end of the family. It's because they've taken over through fraud, and every minute they're worried about what could unseat them. Justice, family, community, common sense, information, informed people. Justice and freedom and private wealth threatens the hegemonic monopoly. That's why it's at war with prosperity, at war with free will, at war with everything decent, because it's fundamentally rotten at its core and can't compete with it. But I look at the shining eyes of the Spanish people, and I look at their strength and how they've thrown off tyranny so many other times, and I know they will. My God, they don't get to vote on EU tyranny, just like the UK, just like England and Scotland and Ireland can vote on fighting with each other all day and can vote on seceding, because it doesn't matter if they secede from the UK. The UK has 92% of its laws. It was 80% last year, made by the unelected dictatorship. David and I, we're going to break in about a minute. I'm going to come back and cover some other issues with you, but it's just amazing to see how open and naked tyranny has now gotten.
Well, Alex, what you were just saying in terms of the European control of the individual states, there's an article today about the European Parliament debating whether they're going to let European countries ban GMO. So now we've seen the same thing there in Europe, and they're trying to make this the United States of Europe. Same thing we've seen here with the DARK Act, the supposedly Safe and Accurate Labeling Act that was passed in Congress to shut down any control over food or food labeling by local governments. That's what they're doing in Europe. They're shutting that down for previously sovereign states.
I'm glad you raised that. 3 unions, North American, Asian, EU, circumventing national sovereignty, and as you said, just like the TPP, EU, ban labeling. This is the tyranny. This is the end of choice. This is the end of humans being able to vote with their dollars or euros. We'll be back, Infowars.com. I'm coming to you live from Europe. I'm co-hosting with David Knight. We've got some Spanish acoustic guitar bringing us in via Metallica and the great song Battery. Again, I'm your host, Alex Jones, co-hosting with David Knight, who's in Austin, Texas. I'm in Barcelona, Spain. We're going to be covering more events here, but it is shocking to have police march over when you're videotaping in public and say, under new rules, no taping allowed in public, and to then threaten to arrest us, and to just experience that journalists and others that mildly just say, I disagree with the government, I disagree with the king, I disagree with this activity, you are fined or arrested here in Spain. And even mainstream media says it's bizarre police state, bizarre oppression. No, this is the model worldwide. This is what they want to bring in. And under the new EU rules, can't criticize Monsanto. If Spain or Greece or France, who've all banned GMO, trans species, want to say no, doesn't matter. There's no sovereignty, EU says. And I'm glad David Knight raises that, because that is the level of just incredible, colossal, bizarro land, surreal tyranny that we're talking about. And you've got to ask yourself, the globalists are already in control. Why are they doing this? Because they want to be able to put shots in you when they want. They want to be able to take money for national health care and then not give you care. They want to be able to feed you GMO that sterilizes rats and make you accept it. They want to run your life. It's about power. It's about control. It's the same reason these Satanists are showing up protesting to keep killing babies and showing up with Baphomet statues and selling tickets to support abortion, because they got a God and they serve it and they follow it and they live it. They talk the talk, they walk the walk. They may be chicken-necked. They may be ugly. They may be stupid. They may be weak, but they know how to serve their God. They know how to tithe. They know how to give. They love their God. Well, forget God, okay, for all you atheists out there. Do you serve anything? Like Bob Dylan says, you got to serve somebody. Well, I serve the truth, and I serve strength and the individual, and I serve the power of the people. And at a fundamental genetic level, I hate these parasites and their big gangs. I mean, we all hate seeing a video on National Geographic of, say, 20 African dogs pulling down a lion and killing it. Or we hate seeing an elephant being taken down by 20, 30 hyenas. And it stomps them and it hits them and it kills 10 of them, but still they all gang up and pull it down and rip its trunk off and rip its eyes out. You know, at a fundamental level, we just see it for what it is: predatory, weak, pathetic. Some will argue it's survival of the fittest. Well, I know this. They've built an artificial construct to use our energy and our will to build their breakaway civilization. So here's the message. Maybe they're right. Maybe you don't have what it takes. Maybe I don't. Maybe we are dominated. Maybe we are failed. Maybe genetically and spiritually I'm wrong, that I don't want to hurt innocents and I don't want to dumb people down to use them like cattle. Maybe I'm a failure, that I didn't join the New World Order and use my intelligence to dominate, make millions of dollars, and be immune from prosecution and be above the law. But you know what? My soul says that's a fraud, and I know it is, and I'll never use my knowledge of the world to hurt innocents. I will only use my knowledge of the universe to empower souls and minds for free will. And the public doesn't listen, if they don't want this message, if they don't want this truth, then that is your choice. But I'm here to make sure you have that choice, be free or be slave. It's an epic moment, a legendary moment, a historic moment to be alive. Choose what side you're on, don't be lukewarm. We're back in 70 seconds after the break with my final segment. Then, from Albion, the former United Kingdom, now deep behind EU enemy lines, Paul Joseph Watson, David Knight, and the rest of the Infowars crew. We found a bunch of reports from Barcelona, more coming from Europe, in multiple countries where they have raised the taxes, cut off the resources, shut off the coal power plants to the point that Europe is collapsing. In fact, no country in Europe, statistically, admittedly, has been more economically destroyed than Spain. Spain has had more than 200 major coal-powered clean plants that just put out carbon dioxide and water vapor shut down in the last 7-8 years. They put up wind farms that are a boondoggle, that don't supply the energy, that don't deliver the energy to where it's going. They lose about half of it on the lines. And when people say, I don't care about coal, screw them. When you take cheap energy and you make it expensive, then no one can have factories, no one can have jobs. People have less discretionary income. It's all going to pay for your power bill. The electric cars go off of it. Everything slows down. I mean, the first thing you do in a military operation in World War II or Korea or Vietnam is bomb power plants. Well, the globalists don't bomb power plants. They just go, hey, I'm trendy. I'm a liberal. We're going to shut your power plants off. It's for the earth. Knowing that they want you to have less discretionary income. They go, hey, it's trendy. 250 square foot apartments, so we can raise your taxes on you. I mean, it's feudalism. Feudalism was about keeping people at a subsistence level or below it as political control. So you were so busy under economic domination that you couldn't ever be involved in anything else. So the nobility could ride by on their horses and look at the commoners who are about a foot or two shorter from malnutrition, and they have 5, 6 kids. 2 of them would be from mineral deficiencies, totally mentally retarded. This is in Japanese culture, European culture, Aztec culture, and they would call them the little people. They'd have snot all over their faces, starving, and they'd ride by, keeping on about 5 to 10% of the land to survive. If you killed a rabbit or a deer to eat, they'd kill your whole family, slit your throats, hang you upside down, burn you at the stake, whatever. And it's back the same deal. It's feudalism, same royalty, same people, same scum, mixed up with the Rothschilds. And that's austerity, that's Agenda 21, that's their plan. And once they get you addicted, though, to free government handouts and welfare, then they think you'll stay bound to the system as they slowly turn off the resources. The truth is, free market can deliver unlimited resources, unlimited renaissance, anything you can imagine. Look how much we progressed in 100 years. But globalism is about stopping that progression and only letting you have resources and tools and technology that are Trojan horses delivered from the gods in the Pelennor Fields in the golden fields of Elysium. And so we need to understand, we don't want to break away Elysium, the Greek legend of those that serve the gods, those that serve the elite, given life extension, given the power. We understand the human mind that envisioned Elysium can build Elysium, can build the fire of Prometheus for everyone, and it's not the devil who lies and tells the occult that he is Prometheus. It is the God of the heavens that has given us the Promethean fire to be able to go to the next level, and the system will never be able to suppress the human spirit from attaining that fire. You do not have to serve the Illuminati to gain the fire. That is a false fire. That is a false light. The Illuminati is not illumined. And you will only be illuminated when you have God in your heart and realize that what you do to the least of me, you've done to me, as Christ said. So I'm going to throw it back to David Knight, who's doing a fabulous job co-hosting the show. I'll be back tomorrow, Lord willing, live, more street reports, more on the ground reports. The other reports we haven't aired yet today are on Infowars.com. If you want to air some of those with Watson, what are the names of the reports? We shot like 3 or 4 that one of them's got bad audio. We're trying to fix it, where I saw the street musician that was levitating, and I point out how it ties into the private Federal Reserve and its con game of creating, false money, how you're a conspiracy theorist if you point out how the guy levitating in the streets of Barcelona isn't really levitating. It's a pretty powerful video. We've got a bunch of those coming up at Infowars.com, but I'm just excited about the energy of humanity and the fact that in my gut, in my spirit, I know we're going to prevail over this tyranny. But the enemy attack is launching, is intensifying. So God bless you all, David.